All right. Good morning. Good morning. So welcome, everyone, to my talk. Get your Helm charts out there. So I'm Reinhard. I'm a consultant at Codecentric, which is a German IT consultancy, probably one of the most awesome German IT employers, I would say. We also have offices in Amsterdam and Breda, by the way. So if you're interested, speak to me. I'm a Helm org in charts maintainer. Yeah, can reach me on Twitter. What are we going to do today? So I'm going to take you on a little journey and show you how you basically can host your own Helm charts on GitHub pages. And this involves the HomeHub, how you can test your charts on an ephemeral cluster, and how you can finally host all the stuff on GitHub. And in the end, I also have an example on GitHub which puts everything together. So first of all, let me introduce you to the Helm Hub. The Helm Hub was introduced last year at KubeCon. It's basically a platform, a portal where you can find Helm charts. It's basically obviously a distributed search, and anyone can host, can register their own repos with the hub, so you can find Helm charts that are not only in the community charts repo, but in many other repositories. As I said, you can register your own repositories. It just takes a pull request. And what's also interesting, Helm 3 will be able to search the hub directly, so without even adding a repo, as far as I know. I just tried that out yesterday. So it seems to work. Who of you has contributed to the community charts repo? Yeah, few hands, excellent. So then you are probably aware that this repository is basically a victim of its own success, right? So it's the community is growing tremendously, which is great, but which causes problems, of course. It's barely manageable anymore. So we tried to find ways how to make that better. So one of the things we did, we added owners files. So chart owners can basically manage and merge their own PRs for their own charts. This works together with the CI infrastructure. So the bot comes along and merges if you have the permissions for that. If you are an owner of a chart, you can do that. This made the things a little bit better, but still it's not good. Currently we have 250 open pull requests, which is really a lot. And turnaround times are still long. So this is why we also invented the hub. So people can host their charts somewhere else in their own repositories, but still get the visibility. People can find the charts via the hub. And so we would really like to promote the hub and also get folks to host their charts on their own. Okay, is that better? Right, so in the end we would try and move and convince people to host charts really on their own. And so in the long term, we're thinking about replicating the charts repo, but this is not there, don't worry. And it's not clear yet if we're going to host Helm 3 charts there, so this is still being discussed. But in order to get folks to host repos on their own, we need to make this easy. Right, so not everyone is a company and has infrastructure and can afford setting up clusters and stuff like this. So we need to find a way to make this easy, and this is why we are developing tooling for this. And I'm going to show you what's already there and how this can be done. So first of all, there's the charts testing tool. If you host the charts on your own, you wanna test your charts. You want to have a CI infrastructure. You want to make sure you offer quality. So if somebody wants to use your chart, they want to be sure it's tested and it works. So the chart testing tool basically grew out of what we have for the community charts repo. Initially, this was like just a set of shell scripts, and we thought wouldn't it be cool if we factored that out so anybody else could use it? And this is what I did. I think last year or 2 years ago, don't remember. So the first attempt was just refactoring everything, and the result was like a 500-line shell script, which is, as you might guess, not the best thing to maintain. So, but it was a great first step, and people could use it. It was packaged in a Docker image. And so as a second step, I refactored the whole thing again, and it's now a Go application, which is great. And we are also growing the community around that. We get excellent contributions, and folks use it. And this is also used by the CI for infrastructure in the charts repository, in the community repository. So what can the tool do? It can run some linting stuff, YAML validation, and it will lint your chart, it will install your chart. It automatically discovers charts that are changed in the Git repository and tests only the changed charts. So it installs them, runs Helm tests, and it can also run upgrade tests, which is really important to make sure you don't break things when you update your charts. So what it does, it installs the previous minor version and upgrades to the current version, and it also does in-place updates of the same version, which can also fail because even if you don't change your manifests, as you probably know, Helm can generate random values and stuff like this, or you may have labels in there which change because they refer to the chart version and stuff like this. So you actually get changes even if you do an upgrade of the same version, and this might cause problems, which we should discover. So now we have a testing tool. Now we also need a cluster to run the tests on. So, and as I said, if you're not a company that has infrastructure, you need some kind of Kubernetes cluster that you can spin up on your CI infrastructure. And this is where Kind comes into play. Kind is Kubernetes in Docker, which is an excellent tool which allows you to spin up Kubernetes clusters in Docker and actually multi-node clusters. Not just like if you know Minikube or Kubernetes in Docker desktop, it's only single node. You may want to test your stuff on multi-node clusters because you would like to test with multiple replicas. You would like to test with pod anti-affinity and stuff like this. This all can be done on a Kind cluster. And it's really fairly easy. You install it and just do Kind create cluster. You can specify a config file if you need multiple nodes. You can even add further configurations. Under the hood, it uses kubeadm and even pass in configuration for that. And I think for the kubelet and stuff like this, if you need special things. And you can also specify the Kubernetes, the node image, which allows you to test against specific Kubernetes versions, if this is interesting for you. And this is something you can do. In my case, it's on Circle CI. You can easily spin that up in a CI pipeline. Now, all right, now we have a cluster, we test it, and in the end, we need to host the stuff somewhere. So, and why not host it on GitHub directly? GitHub has GitHub pages, and a chart repository is basically just you need an HTTP server that can serve YAML files and tar files. That's all you need. There's for Helm 3 you can use OCI registries, but this is out of the picture now. So this is for Helm 2, or well, still supported in Helm 3, I guess. It's just you need an index YAML file and tar files. And when you host on GitHub pages, you basically have two options. Either you commit your tarbars to the repo on your GitHub pages branch, or the other option would be to use GitHub Releases, which is basically the more native integration. This is what we're doing here, what I prefer and what the tooling also does. So you basically only have the YAML file in your GitHub pages branch, which then refers to the GitHub Releases in the repo. And this is where the chart releaser comes into play. Chart releaser is a tool that allows you to create the index YAML file from the GitHub releases, and it also uploads and creates the releases in GitHub for you from your chart packages. The tool was initiated by Paul Tchaikovsky, right there. Thanks, Paul, who donated the initial code to the and put it. Then we put it to the Helm org. So, as I said, this tool, can create releases in the index YAML file for you. You still need some bunch of shell scripting around that. We have plans to improve that. We may create a GitHub app that makes things easier, or to create really a full-featured solution that allows you to set up the CI, and that also does the packaging and stuff like this, and whatever is needed. Right. So. All right. So let's look at an example. I have a repo here that implements everything, and I will show you around in the code now. Okay, so this is the repo. Feel free to clone it. Which demos everything. This is basically an application and the chart. It's all in one repo. Just for the sake of this demo, it's a simple Go application. It's just a web app that prints "Hello, Helm" or something. And yeah, let me show it here. So, can you read this? Need to make it bigger. So I have a simple Helm chart in here. Excellent, thank you. All right, and as I said, I'm using Circle CI. You could use Travis or whatever. That doesn't really matter. And on every pull request, I launch a CI cluster, a kind cluster, and test the charts on that. So if you're familiar with Circle CI, you need to have a config file here. And the interesting thing is here, install charts. This is just a script that's called. Okay, so let me show you around what this does. Let's go to the main here. So first of all, I run the CT is chart testing container in the background. This is what I'm doing here. And then I run all the commands in that container later on for testing. So I'm starting the container in the background, mounting in like the work directory and the config file for chart testing. And here I'm creating a kind cluster. This is just downloading kind, create cluster. I have a config file. In this case, kind config YAML. I'm creating a cluster with 2 worker nodes. It's not really necessary here, but just for the sake of the example. And get the kube config, put it into my kind container, my chart testing container, and just check if things work here. And then the interesting part is here, I just do a chart testing CT install. That's basically all I need to do. And this checks the repo if there is a change in my charts, and then all changed charts are tested. This is fairly straightforward. I already created a pull request. I just did that yesterday because that may take too long to do it now, because it takes quite a while to spin up a kind cluster. In the end, this is just a simple change. I just bumped the major version. Thought it would be nice to create a major release here of this demo app. You can see the Circle CI checks here, and I can quickly go to Circle CI to to look at the logs. So you can see here, this creates the cluster. Can you read that?
That's perfect.
We see we have a cluster with our control plane and 2 worker nodes. I install Tiller, and then I run chart testing. So first it prints out the configuration, and it says, okay, this is the chart it detected that needs to be tested because it's changed in Git. And then it installs it, prints out the Helm status information, and I see describe outputs of all the parts of the deployment and all the parts, I think, and all the logs are also printed there. And in the end, it was successful, and this means my pull request can be merged. So now when I hit merge, another script is run, which is the release sh. This is the place where you still need a little bit of shell scripting around. So what I'm doing here, this is what we would like to improve in the future. So first of all, when you create a GitHub release, you also create a tag. Every release is associated with a tag. So what I'm doing here, I try and find the latest tags, and see if I have changes since this tag. If no, I just return. Otherwise, I try and identify the changed charts here, doing a git diff against the charts directory. This returns an array of changed charts, and I loop over them here and package them. This is what I still need to do on my own, which doesn't do yet. Package chart, it just calls Helm package. This creates the tarballs, and then I can call the chart releaser. I say release charts and update index, which is down here. Release chart, just this CR for chart releaser upload creates the releases, and then CR index creates the index file from the GitHub releases, and I need to commit that to my GitHub pages branch and push it. So this is what I will do now. Let me merge this pull request, and we will see that Circle CI kicks in. So that's already done. So let's look at the log again. So I fetched the tags here. So I get that tag, which is the latest tag. If I can show you the releases. This was from yesterday. If I do a refresh now, I have a 1.00 release. So I'm comparing the latest tag with the head, and the diff says I need to do I identify diffs for this chart, and this means I need to create a release for it. So I run CT. It finds this tarball, creates the index YAML, creates the release. Then I commit the index YAML and push it. And this means I have the new release here. And if I look at my GitHub Pages branch, I see this was updated in the index YAML. So the index YAML file basically points to the URLs, point to the GitHub releases. And here we see this is the one I just created. And if I do Helm repo up, No, I don't even have to. Yeah. And then a Helm search in my demo repo. I should see it. Yes. So I could install it from the repo. And right. So and basically you need to add the repo, which is basically your GitHub page, and then you can install charts from there. And as I said, there's still some magic around that. We would try to make that easier, so it's fairly straightforward. So anybody can just go ahead and host their charts easily on their own. So this is just one way to do it. You can host them anywhere else, as I said, in any HTTP server. But this is just basically if someone has their own open source project and a cool application and wants to host it, doesn't want to spend any money on huge infrastructure, this is basically the way to go to host your charts for free. Right. So that's basically it. Thank you. If you have any questions.
Question about the chart tester. You ran the install commands, and it requires the Kubernetes cluster, the kind, to be already set up. But the first thing you do is check if the version changed. Is it possible to not have that? Can you just check if the version changed before spinning up the cluster?
That's possible, yes. So the question was, can I check when chart testing is run? Can I check the version, or if there is a version bump before I actually spin up the cluster, so I don't have to spin it up if there is no change. This is possible, and actually I'm doing that. So chart testing has a command which says CT list changed. That's the place. If there's no change, I just return and do nothing. Mm-hmm.
You say the chart testing project, it can test upgrades. Do you know if those upgrades are testing when you submit a pull request to the stable repository?
In the stable repository, this is not yet active. We may enable that at some point. I guess many charts will fail. This is why we are hesitant to activate it. And I discovered a few issues with some charts, and we need to look into that. But if you run it on your own, you should probably activate it. So I didn't activate it here for the demo, but it's off by default. Okay, so the question was when you test the chart, if you can also do some kind of integration tests when you have an application that has data associated with on a PVC or a database, and data needs to be migrated if this can be tested. What the tool does, it runs Helm test. Basically, anything you can do with Helm test can be done. You can use Helm test to spin up a test container, and this container can verify your data. Yes.
A little broader question, not sure if this is the right place for that. You mentioned the HomeHub.
Mm-hmm.
My idea was if there are some community guidelines or rules that people that publish something on the HomeHub should follow. So for example, if it is a closed source product, that at least the chart configuration needs to be open source and available for pull requests. Because if we're thinking about the current state of the Helm charts, I want to enable that feature because my cluster is special. How do I get that through to the maintainers of the chart? And if the chart definition isn't open source, then there's basically no way for me to bug someone on that and just help them for existence.
Okay, so the question was for charts listed on the Helm Hub, if you have any requirements, if they need to be open source or so. The answer is yes. We require the charts to be, I think, Apache licensed, and they need, and also the Helm Hub pulls in the README file from the repo. It needs to be publicly accessible, otherwise it can't be listed on the hub.
The Git repository.
Yes.
Okay, good.
In your example repository, is it meant to host multiple charts or just a single one? And how does it look on the release page?
Yeah. So the question was if you can have multiple charts in a charts repo. There's only one chart in my example. The answer is yes. You can have any number of charts, and chart testing tool will discover which charts change and only test those charts and release those. That's possible. Yes. And this is probably what you will do.
On the releases page, the
Um,
chart has the chart name, so each chart gets its own release.
Okay, so if you like, I use this on another repository. I can show you that.
So it's not a global version, but it's just a direct chart.
No. So we have our own charts repo for codecentric, where we have several charts in there. In this case, it's 3. We have our custom Jenkins chart, a Keycloak chart, a Mailhawk chart. And for releases, this is why we always have to prefix for the chart. Yeah, so this repo does exactly the same stuff my example does. If you want to check that out. No more questions? Okay, thank you very much.